The Roman Empire has been known to have many brutal emperors, but we can assure you that none was as cruel as the emperor you are about to watch. This emperor was so cruel that historians till date are still in utter shock from all the horrific things he did. Sit tight while we take you back in time to the place it all began. Born into a world of daggers and politics was a little boy named Nero. He was dragged onto the throne at 16, crowned not by destiny, but by sheer manipulation of his ever-crafty mother. His mother, Agrippina the Younger, had clawed her way to power with all the grace of a lioness. She married the Emperor Claudius, then convinced him to adopt Nero as his son and heir. And when the time was right, Claudius conveniently died. Poisoned, they whispered. With Claudius out of the way, Nero became the new ruler of the Roman Empire. At first, Nero obeyed his mother like an obedient little boy. He also listened to his advisors, Seneca and Sporus. He allowed his mother to sit behind the throne, whispering in his ear. It was during this period that Nero cut taxes, not just to win favor, but to relieve the burden on Rome's common people. He punished corrupt tax collectors and returned stolen funds. The empire watched in disbelief as court cases grew fairer. Nero insisted that trials be public. He pushed for legal aid for the poor and demanded quicker rulings. For a moment, it seemed Rome might be ruled by justice, not fear. He even went as far as to ban capital punishment, something almost unheard of for a Roman emperor. But as the years went by, the crown started to become heavy. He wanted to follow his passion of singing and acting, but Rome wanted a ruler, not an artist. They insisted that singing and acting were beneath an emperor. When Nero realized he couldn't get what he wanted, something snapped inside him when he had to choose, so he chose being an emperor over his passion. And that was the beginning of the end. Nero started to channel his frustration to rebellion.
I will show them all. I will show them the true meaning of power. I will teach them a lesson they will never forget.
First, he broke free from the Senate, then from his mother's influence. But his mother wasn't going down without a fight, which led Nero to see her as a threat. At first, Nero tried to kill his mother subtly. He had a ship designed to sink while she was aboard. But when that failed, he resorted to a more direct approach. Agrippina was brutally murdered by soldiers in her own villa in 59 AD, and her body was disposed of. The act stunned Rome, and it was also at this point that the tyrant in Nero took his first breath. Nero's cruelty didn't stop with his mother. His first wife, Claudia Octavia, was the daughter of Emperor Claudius. And while their marriage was politically arranged, it became increasingly strained. By 62 AD, Nero had grown tired of her and sought to marry his mistress, Poppaea Sabina. So he concocted false charges against Octavia, had her exiled, and soon after executed. But many historians believe that the real reason for her death was Nero's desire to marry Poppaea. Then came what is now known as the Great Fire of Rome. One night in 64 AD, a fire broke out in Rome. The city burned for 6 days and 7 nights. Some said Nero lit the fire himself, clearing space for a new and grander city. Others said he stood on his balcony, playing his lyre while his people screamed in the streets. The truth is uncertain, but the legend stuck. What is certain is what Nero did afterward. He seized the opportunity to rebuild Rome in a more grandiose style. He constructed his golden house, Domus Aurea, on the land cleared by the blaze. He was also said to have organized emergency aid, opened his gardens to the homeless, and oversaw food distribution. He also rebuilt other parts affected by the fire, introducing fireproof materials and wider roads. However, the extravagant palace, with its gilded walls and massive gardens, only deepened his reputation for self-indulgence and disregard for the people. Gradually, the people started to stamp him with the seal of madness and cruelty. To save himself and his reputation, Nero needed a scapegoat to deflect suspicion. He blamed the Christians, a small and unpopular sect in Rome. This led to one of the first imperial persecutions of Christians. Nero had them arrested, tortured, and killed in horrific ways. Some were sewn into animal skins and thrown to wild dogs, while others were burned alive. As Nero's reign continued, his cruelty became more apparent, and it wasn't long before he began to suspect everyone around him. In 65 AD, there was an assassination plot led by a group of senators and nobles who were desperate to end Nero's reign of terror. It was known as the Pisonian Conspiracy. However, once the conspiracy was discovered, Nero responded with ruthless vengeance. The conspirators were executed, and the purge spread far beyond those directly involved. Even those with no connection to the plot were tortured and killed. Among the victims was Seneca, Nero's former tutor, who had once guided him in his early years of rule. Seneca was forced to take his own life on Nero's orders, despite having been a loyal advisor. It was also around this time that Nero, who was once deeply in love with Poppaea Sabina, ended her life by kicking her to death during a violent outburst while she was pregnant. His grief didn't undo the brutality, and Rome watched as their emperor mourned the woman he murdered. As if all these weren't bad enough, Nero outdid himself again. He found a young boy named Sporus who looked like Poppaea, castrated him, and married him in a Roman wedding. There was a dowry, a bridal veil, and all the usual ceremonies. Nero treated Sporus as his wife. It was believed he did this as an attempt to bring Poppaea back or ease his guilt. By 67 AD, Nero's tyranny sparked widespread discontent across the empire. Vindex, the governor of Gaul, rose in rebellion and backed Galba, the governor of Hispania, as the next emperor. Though Vindex died, Galba's support grew. In 68 AD, Rome turned its back on Nero. His guards abandoned him, and the Senate declared him a public enemy. Cornered and afraid, Nero fled Rome. But seeing as he had nowhere to go, he returned to Rome and hoped to find someone in the palace who would kill him. When he didn't find, he screamed, "Have I neither friend nor foe?" He then left Rome wearing a disguise as he headed for a villa offered to him by an imperial freedman. When he got to the villa, he ordered the remaining loyal servants with him to dig his grave while he prepared to commit. But he was nervous and paced around muttering, "Qualis artifex pereo." What an artist the world is losing. Although it's not clear whether Nero killed himself or convinced his private secretary to do it, the horsemen sent to arrest him found him bleeding in the villa. They tried to help stop the bleeding, but it was too late, and Nero died with his final words being, "Too late. This is fidelity." Nero, the tyrant. Nero, the monster. But also, Nero, the artist. A man born to sing, cursed to rule. His legacy is stained in blood. But in the cracks of history, if you look closely, you can still hear the faint echo of his songs. He died alone, abandoned, a fugitive emperor. And yet in his final breath, history records his words not as a general or ruler, but as a broken artist. If you would like to hear more stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. Thanks for watching.